Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mondays with Mendy. Tonight, we are going to be exploring from the Catskill Mountains. That is where Dina and I are spending the last few days, as well as today. And up here in the Catskill Mountains, where it's nice and cool outside, I hope that it's not too hot where you are tuning in from. Up here in the Catskill Mountains, it is a typical retreat for Jews from all over the country, but especially from the New York and tri-state area. And if you can imagine Brooklyn being transported 2 hours north, that is pretty much the scene what you would see here out in the Catskill Mountains during the July and August months. So in any event, the Torah waits for no one. It never goes on vacation, and it's always applicable no matter where you are, when you are. And so Mondays with Mendy comes to you live from Luck Sheldrake, New York. Tonight, we have a very interesting discussion in store for you because tonight we are going to explore why the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Av is considered one of the happiest days in the Jewish calendar. That's correct. Coming up in just a few days, we celebrate one of the happiest moments in the Jewish calendar. And the reason why may blow your mind. And in addition to blowing your mind, it may also give you some of the recipe and ingredients for a successful marriage, a successful relationship of any kind. Because this is a celebration of love. Indeed, this holiday, which unfortunately doesn't receive a lot of fanfare, is considered the Jewish festival of love. Imagine Yitzhak, right? Yitzhak. This is what Yitzhak would look like. So, before we begin our exploration of this festival of love, there's an old story that's told about a young couple that is called to heaven before they could be married. And when the couple gets brought to heaven, they turn to God and they say, we would love to get married. And God says, well, you know what? I think you're going to have to wait. If you really want to marry her, fine, we'll see. But I think for right now, we're just going to have to hold off. Okay? So they wait 5 years. They come back. God, we still want to get married. Okay, if you still want to get married, show me that you can wait another 5 years. So, sure enough, they go ahead and they wait another 5 years, and they come back in front of God, and again, they turn to God, and they say, we want to get married. Please, what can we do? It's already been 10 years. God says, all right, if you're adamant about getting married, I will allow it. And sure enough, they get married. And, of course, marriage isn't all roses and chocolates, and they end up finding a lot of problems in their relationship. A lot of obstacles until they choose to get a divorce. So they go back to God, and they say, God, we want a divorce. So God turns to them and he says, gentlemen, do you know that it took me 10 years to find a rabbi in heaven? 10 years just to find a rabbi that lived in heaven. Can you imagine how long does it take me to find a divorce lawyer? So, of course, I mean no disrespect to our marital attorneys. They have to serve in a very specific capacity. But ultimately, love is such a powerful thing. Romance is such a beautiful, beautiful opportunity between two people. So, this is a day when we celebrate that, when we cherish that love, cherish that relationship between two individuals, and really highlight it. This day, the 15th day of Av, is, as I said, the most happiest day in the Jewish calendar. It is a day typically when men and women would use as an opportunity to find their bashert, their match, the other half of their soul, the one that they were always meant to be with. And the question is, why this day? What is so specific and unique about this day specifically that it is chosen for such an awesome and auspicious opportunity to match up all of the young men and young women that existed in those communities, to the point where we refer to it as the happiest day of the year. So in the Talmud it tells us that Rabbi Shimon used to say that there was no happier day for Israel than the 15th day of Av. Why? He explained that the daughters of Jerusalem would go out dressed in white garments, and they would dance in the vineyards. What would they say as they danced in the vineyards? They would say, "Young men, raise your eyes and see whom you choose for yourself. Do not pay attention to beauty, pay attention to family, as it says, charm is false and beauty is futile. A God-fearing woman is one to be praised." As we say in the beautiful song every Friday night called Eshet Chayil. So, again, we see that this day of the 15th day of Av was, or Tu B'Av as it's referred to, was such a special day that the women, the maidens, would go out and dance in front of the men, and hopefully a man would find the woman that was right for him, and they would live happily ever after. Only other day that's referred to as such a monumental occasion, that's right, Yom Kippur. So here we have Tu B'Av, the 15th day of Av, and Yom Kippur placed on the same plateau, which is mind-blowing, because Yom Kippur is a day that we celebrate across the Jewish community. Everyone participates on Yom Kippur, or at least most Jews participate and attend some sort of service in some way, shape, or form. However, Tu B'Av gets little or no credit. Why is that? How is that we refer to these 2 days on the same level, and yet one receives no fanfare? So it's important to understand how this day came to be, how this celebration came to be. Because it is not the fact that because it was such a happy day, therefore they chose it as a moment for matchmaking to bring couples together, but rather the opposite is true. Because they brought people together, it brought unity to these young men and women, therefore it was a happy and monumental occasion. Just like Yom Kippur, which is a celebratory time and a happy time because of the function of the day, because what we achieve and accomplish during that 25-hour period. Rather than the happiness being the cause, it is the effect. So yes, we understand that this is a special day because we brought boys and girls together on this day, but why? Where did that tradition, that custom, come from? And indeed, why was it instituted on this specific day? So there are many different events that are highlighted throughout history as being held and celebrated on this specific day of Tu B'Av. Some of the ones that are noted are the fact that the tribes were allowed to intermarry one with the other. So when I use the term intermarry, we don't mean Jews and non-Jews. We mean in this context the tribe of Benjamin with the tribe of Judah and so on and so forth. That was a very special and celebratory experience. Of course, there are many other reasons that are brought. The tribe of Benjamin had been excommunicated from the rest of the Jewish people. They were allowed to re-enter the congregation. The Jews in the desert that died over the course of 40 years as they wandered, they stopped dying on this day. And many, many other special things. But one that I'd like to highlight specifically, and that is that it says that on the 15th day of Av, on Tu B'Av, they would cease to chop wood for the pile on the altar. And the day was called the day of the breaking of the axe. So, many special experiences, but what is this one referring to? The day of the breaking of the axe. Now, if you've ever watched World's Strongest Man competition, you know that it is possible to break an axe. And in fact, it's something that happens on the show all the time. But typically, Jewish people are not winning World's Strongest Man for reasons I don't need to elaborate on. So what is this Day of Broken Axe, and why is this a cause for celebration? The fact that we broke axes does not necessarily tell me, oh, therefore we should bring boys and girls, young men and women, together on this day for marriage. And ultimately it will be celebrated as one of the happiest occasions in the calendar. Why? What was the initial reason? Because we broke the axe. Yes, the Torah has many strange and obscure concepts, but this is not one of them. So what is it about this day, about this experience, that made it so monumental? So to understand what the Day of Broken Axe represents, we have to understand what wood they were chopping. Okay? What wood were they chopping that they then had to break the axe once they completed chopping all of that wood? So let's give you a brief history lesson. The Jewish people built a temple under King Solomon. King Solomon, the great King Solomon, the wise King Solomon, built a beautiful, masterful temple, but of course, it was destroyed on the 9th day of Av. It was destroyed by the King Nebuchadnezzar, and the Jews were taken to Babylonia, exiled in chains to Babylonia, Babel. When the Jewish people were freed of their exile and allowed to return back to Israel under the king, the Persian king, the Jewish people, many of them felt that Israel was too volatile for them to go and move there. So most of the Jews actually stayed in Babylonia. They stayed there. And only 40,000 Jews returned back to the land of Israel, a very small number. And yet, they dedicated themselves to rebuilding the temple, and indeed they did rebuild the temple. But it was a very basic and limited temple until the great King Herod came along and beautified the temple tremendously. Till that point, the temple barely managed to exist on a very meager ration of taxes between the Jewish people. One supply that was always in shortage was wood. Wood was necessary for the constant stream of sacrifices and incense that were brought in the temple on a regular basis, both as communal sacrifices but also privately for people, for those that had a celebration or those that had a transgression. It was constant need for wood. And wood costs money. You have to cut the wood, it has to be properly chopped, then it has to be skinned and eventually brought before the temple. And of course, they only wanted to use good quality wood that would produce a nice, steady stream of fire or smoke for whatever the specific mitzvah or requirement was in the temple. Now, as a result of the fact that this was an extreme era of poverty for the Jewish people, many of them still lived in Babylonia, and only a small number had actually moved to Israel. As a result, it was very difficult to sustain the required amount of wood for the services done in the temple. And there was always a shortage of wood. So, the leaders of the generation decided that they would appeal to private citizens for wood for the temple. And indeed, that's exactly what they did. They walked around and they gathered from 8 families, only 9 families, They found 9 families that would sponsor wood for the temple. And when one family's supply completed, the next family would make a delivery or sponsor a delivery for the wood to be used in the temple. And like this, it was a constant cycle of someone sponsoring wood so that the services can continue without interruption. The moment or the day when they would bring their wood to donate it to the temple, when they got the call or the text message or the email, or in those days the pigeon mail, right? When they got that call, it was such a wonderful day, wonderful opportunity that they celebrated it like a Yom Tov, like a Jewish holiday. To the extent that certain fast days were actually annulled if it fell out on a day when this family had the opportunity to bring their wood to the temple. That's how powerful a moment it was, that it superseded a fast day in the fact that it was so special to donate wood to the temple. So yes, of course, donating to the temple, anytime you donate, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And of course, we always encourage people to give tzedakah and participate in great projects through kindness and generosity. But what actually was taking place here? What were they doing? They were simply donating wood to the temple. The wood was going to be used to bring the sacrifices. And yet, if someone had to bring a sacrifice, and it was on a fast day, they still had to fast. Fast day did not overrule their bringing of the sacrifice. So if their sacrifice bringing was not enough to overrule a fast day, why would simple donation of wood, which is only a prerequisite, a preparatory step to bring a sacrifice, how would that supersede or overrule the fast day? So to answer this question, we need to understand the significance of chopping wood. Go ahead and now raise your hand if you are a woodcutter. I myself do not chop wood regularly, but of course it is a noble profession, and in biblical times it was a common one, a frequent one. What really took place when these men would go out and chop the wood? This year we're celebrating, commemorating the 50th anniversary of JFK's inaugural address on January 20th, 1961. When he said the infamous words, "Ask not what you could do for your country, but rather what your country can do for you." There's a story that's told about a classroom that's reviewing history. A teacher would say a quote and then call upon a student to see who knew the orator, the author of that specific quote. So the teacher gets up. The first thing that she asks says, "Give me liberty or give me death." All the girls and boys try to figure out who said it. This Japanese girl in the corner picks up her hand. "Nathan Hale, 1776. Wow. Teacher turns to her. "That's correct. Beautiful job." All right. How about who said to be or not to be? Again, the little Chinese girl raises her hand. "That was William Shakespeare from Hamlet." Very good. The teacher is quite impressed. How about from politics? Who said, "Read my lips, no new taxes"? Again, the little Japanese girl right away jumps up and says, "That was George Bush Sr." "That's amazing," the girl says. "Wow, that's really, really good." Finally, she turns to the girl and says, "All right, I'm going to give you one more. Who said, 'Ask not what your country can do for you, but rather what you can do for your country'?" Again, everyone is trying to figure it out, and the girl jumps up and says, "That was JFK Jr., John F. Kennedy in 1961. Teacher turns to all of the other kids and she says, "I'm ashamed of all of your children. This little Japanese girl, not from the United States, has only been in the United States for 6 months, and she already knows more U.S. history than all of you." So the boy in the back says, "Ah, the hell with all the Japs." Teacher, furious, turns to the back of the classroom and she says, "Who said that?" The boy stands up and he says, "Harry Truman, 1945. Of course, it's not just a quote to be thrown around amongst children. JFK was making a very powerful statement in saying that life is not about what you can do for me, but rather what I can do for you. And that's where I get my satisfaction, from that inherent value of helping another individual. The same rule could be applied when it comes to preparing wood for the altar, for the services in the temple. These people were not offering sacrifices themselves. They weren't even building the sacrifice. They were merely being one small part of the puzzle, a facilitator of sorts, so that someone else could complete the actual task, the actual service. So here these people are standing in the forest, schwitzing away, cutting wood, skinning it, shacking it, all for what? So that they can be a little bit helpful and participatory in this service in the temple. It may not have even been a service that was related to them. It may not have been for their family, for their friends, their community. It could have been some personal individual that made a mistake. He has to bring a sacrifice. And I'm going to help you bring that sacrifice. You know how I'm going to help you? I'm going to chop some wood for you. That is what was being celebrated on this special day of Tu B'Av, of the 15th day of Av. Pardon me. In this experience, in this moment, when you are willing and able to stop what you're doing and sacrifice your time and your energy, and sometimes your resources, just to provide assistance to another Jewish person, be it physical assistance, spiritual assistance, emotional assistance, it doesn't matter what shape or form. But in that moment, you find true connection. Because your life no longer is about me, myself, and my wants and desires, but rather your life now has taken on a new role. It has taken the role of, what do I need for my brothers and sisters? How can I benefit their existence? I care about them, and therefore, I want to see them do well. I want to see them succeed and achieve. How can I bring that to fruition? And the answer is that sometimes it's not from the limelight. We live in a day when the paparazzi has tremendous control, and every aspect of our life is instantly tweeted and messaged on Facebook and posted on blogs and in every other social media spectrum. We live our lives very much out in the public domain. And so, as a result, our brain gets trained to think that the only time it should achieve anything positive is when notoriety will come of it. If I can get myself out there, a TV station, a radio, maybe a newspaper article, then it's worth it. Then there's real value because other people know who I am and what I've achieved. But without that, are my actions truly helpful? Do they validate themselves? Am I even accomplishing anything if no one else knows about it? The woodcutter comes along and tells us, absolutely. In that moment, when you prepare wood for that individual, when you act selflessly and sacrifice of yourself, you reveal an innate connection that is so much deeper than what we reveal on the surface. Because in that moment, you transcend your personal limitations of life. So, yes, JFK was right. We should not be asking what the world can do for us, but rather, what can we do for the world? How can we achieve something? How can we add something to what is currently being done? The people that brought the wood to the temple, they got no special perks. They didn't cut lines. They didn't get reimbursed. They got nothing. And yet it was never about them, and only about delivering the best product to the Bet HaMikdash, to the temple. And that is why this day, the day when they would stop chopping wood, is celebrated as an opportunity to bring young boys and girls together. And eventually, as an opportunity for the most auspicious and happiest day on the Jewish calendar. Why? What took place on the wood cutting that highlighted these ideals, these ideas? What is romance? What is love? If you were to tell me that you and your wife have a great relationship, you have a great relationship, She knows what I do for her, and I know what she does for me. And we always make sure that we stay even. So as long as we're neutral, as long as we're even, we keep the balance of power in our relationship stable, we have the best recipe for success. And the answer to that is, no, you don't. No, you do not. Because in fact, true love and true romance, it may start off in a realm of tit for tat. But with time, with focus, eventually your marriage doesn't stay at that stage, you hope. A successful marriage grows until the point where it's not about the notoriety, it's not about getting credit for making a great dinner or taking care of the baby at night or anything else that we've achieved in the name of helping our families and our spouses. All of that is insignificant. All that matters is that I've made your life a little bit more pleasant and a little bit easier. That's all that matters. Nothing more, nothing less. And through that process, I've brought some greater strength and focus and perspective to myself as well. But whether or not my wife saw me do it, or I'm going to get credit in the newspaper, or some other person's wife saw me, that part is totally inconsequential. Inconsequential. Because I've already achieved my goal and my task, and that is to assist and help and benefit my wife and my family. Credit isn't important. It's not even important if she sees what I've done without taking credit, and she knows that I could have taken credit. So she sees my humility. That's not even worth anything. The true ultimate goal of a relationship is to find that point of connection, that balance where you and your wife are on the same page, the same exact page, where you borrow and you spend together and you discuss things. And it's not contentious, it's not argumentative, it's pleasant, it's calm because you're not fighting each other. You're working together on how to make the best wardrobe or the best, whatever the object is, make it the best possible. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to be the wood on the fire? The wood on the fire, the essential ingredient, the one that causes the flame to burst forth. But yes, the wood is in the limelight. It gets a lot of press and coverage. But as long as the wood is there, it's not unique, it's not special, it's not even different. Or you can be the sticks that will be gathered for the sake of the wood. Now these sticks, they've been gathered because somebody cares deeply about the service in the temple, about providing others with the ability to seek counsel and refuge in this moment. So ask yourself this question. Are you capable of achieving something great, doing something wonderful, special for a friend, a family member, a loved one, a spouse or partner? Are you capable of doing something without any need for recognition whatsoever? If the answer is no, you've got a problem. Because even though it's important for a man to know that his wife appreciates him and a wife to see that her husband appreciates him, and part of that process is that we succeed in fulfilling our expectations. And yes, sometimes we do fail. But there's something powerful to be said there. But if that is the extent of your relationship, it will eventually fail and falter. It will not succeed with the test of time, the test of children, test of grandparenting. It won't succeed. Unless a person is able to transcend that I do for you what you do for me behavior. And when they do that, in that moment when they achieve that transcendence, their life, their connection to God, their connection to their faith, and their connection to their spouse/partner also is transformed. Now it becomes an ideal that they will carry with them forever. True Torah learning, committed 110%. So, when you're a child and you are growing up, Your parents don't rush to take credit for your achievements, even though without a doubt it is all on their shoulders, and without their assistance you would be nowhere today. Yet they don't push themselves into the limelight. They don't project themselves on every success that you experience because they want to see you grow. They want to see you succeed, and part of you gaining your independence is in success, learning how to celebrate it. So they stay away. They keep their grounds. And in that process, they remind us and teach us how monumental it is, how important it is that we do for others without needing credit, without even needing my wife to keep account and say, all right, you did this for me, and I see that you didn't fetch, you didn't jump, you didn't scream. I'm not going to forget that. We don't even need that. All we need to know is that in our existence, in our process, in our deeds, we have made this person a better place, and therefore we have helped God. We have helped Hashem. And that's why we are all here. That is the ultimate goal of what we are trying to achieve. So, whether it's in parenting, or if it's in a marriage, and you've got multiple shluchim, some families, some not, sons, son-in-laws, talk it out. Bring it out into the open. Don't shun from it. Deal with it. And as you bring it to light, people will see it for what it is. The successes, the failures, everything will come to light. And in that process, you will be able to achieve greater and greater success through the clarity that you have found. So go home, examine the relationships at the office, examine your relationships at home without question. Do you have a balanced marriage, or is it tilted one way or the other? And if the answer is it's tilted, fix it. Don't simply pass the buck. Fix it now so that we don't pass this issue on to our children. I want to thank you for tuning in to Mondays with Mendy. We hope that you will find that balance in your love life, as well as in your parenting and at your office. And through tonight's discussion, you'll learn the tools needed to do the right thing for the right reasons without grabbing the headlines, and ultimately developing an innate inner connection that's greater than all of the other mediums that exist. Have a wonderful evening. Next Monday, we'll continue with our discussion, and we'll be back at our regular location in addition to online. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to talking with you soon. Good night.